Welcome back to another episode of the Can of Corn podcast. I'm Parker Hageman. With me, as always, Rob Allison. Rob, how are you today?
Living the dream. Doing well.
Is that your go-to package? Do you have a go-to package like somebody's like, "Hey, how are you?" Is it living the dream?
It will be today.
All right.
It will be today.
Not like just another day in paradise. Another day, another dollar.
The land of milk and honey, Wilton, Iowa. Yep.
Yeah.
All day. All day.
Well, that's good. I love the positivity coming out of you today because there's nothing not to be positive about your class of 2025s that you've recently dropped the ranking on, the fall rankings for the class of 2025. These are, how would we describe it? Well, a pretty good group. I mean, a lot of committed already, but still a lot of uncommitteds with a lot of talent. Why don't you run us down a little bit of what you got going on in your class?
Yeah, the previous rankings, I believe we were at 125. We expanded it out to 150. Just kind of going through it earlier today. Like, I go through there, like every single guy, if they have the desire to play college baseball, I think they are all college baseball recruitable. I think they all have ability, even though from top to bottom there's going to be some varying ability. But I think they all do some nice things. They bring some attractive qualities, and could have some options and opportunities in front of them.
Well, let's dig in a little bit more to what we actually have in the class. Let's start with best overall committed guys. Name a couple of them that you have on your list that and where they're ended up going right now.
Yeah. Our number 2 ranked player, Milo Kelley, had a chance to really drill down in and see him in depth at one of our tournaments. And he's that proto catcher, good physicality, good body movements. You can tell he's really athletic, just really looks the part behind the dish. Tate Slagle at number 4, Cole Moore at number 3. Actually, the biggest oddity about these rankings is in no time ever in history have the top 3 guys in the rankings been catchers. Like, it's a hard to find position, it's a hard to develop position, and for the top 4 to be catchers in that group, that's a little bit of a quinky dink.
But those guys, and again, they're catchers as well, but they also have various other tools that you could see them elsewhere on the field, correct?
Yeah, I think not that he's not versatile, but I think Milo Kelley is pretty locked in as far as being a catcher at the next level. Cole Moore, he brings the advantage of being big and physical, good bat, but he'll also get on the mound and give you 92, 93. I think Tate Slagle, who recently has just added catching to his rapport, like, he could have a chance of being the best catcher of all 4 of them, including, you got Slagle, Moore, Kelley, and Taitn Gray. Like, Tate Slagle is just a freak athletically. He's really good in everything he does. It really looks like he's taken to that position. Can catch and throw like crazy. And, it'll be interesting. And, but yeah, I think for a lot of these guys, when they land on campus, especially since Kelley, Moore, and Slagle are all set to go to Iowa, like, I think they just put them up on the marker board as you put their last name and behind it you put athlete. Like, I think they're just going to throw them out on the field and let them play themselves around and ultimately just figure out what are the best combinations for them to get the best guys that they have on the field at one time.
Now, you mentioned him already, but we'll bring it up in the bigger topic of some of your better uncommitted names on the board. Taitn Gray being number one, previously committed, now available again. Give me your thoughts.
Oh, I would imagine that his phone is ringing off the hook. Um, we'd kind of alluded to it in a previous podcast. Like, regardless of school circumstances, like Taitn Gray's ability, like people aren't going to pass him up. Like, they're going to figure out a way to make room for him on their roster. I think he's looking at a ton of various options. Like, he just checks so many boxes. He's really athletic. He can swing the ever living hell out of it. He has the ability to play multiple positions. Super high academics, super high work ethic, great makeup. Like, there'll probably be schools that balk out and don't chase him just because they don't think they have a snowball's chance in hell of getting him. But he seems excited about revisiting the recruiting process. I know he's got a lot of options and opportunities, and through a lot of conversations, he's going to take some visits. And so I don't think he's definitely not in a bad spot. He's put himself in a good spot. He's playing with the Red Scout team this fall, which has become a huge springboard for a lot of guys to get in front of multiple MLB teams. Um, and that's not out of the realm of reality either. Like, depending on how the fall goes, how the winter goes, how the 25 draft class starts shaping up nationally. Um, yeah, he could be a potential MLB draft prospect this come spring. So
I was going to ask you if he does have draft helium, and then what do you see out of him from what you've seen in person? What does he need to do to get to that to move his status up on the draft board?
Well, in the decades and decades of doing this, the one thing I'll freely admit is I think I become dumber every year to the MLB draft. Um, you're not in the war room. Every organization has a different philosophy. They have different rosters in the minor leagues. They have different strengths and weaknesses, what they need to shore up, where they feel like they're solidified and don't need to chase in other areas. Um, I think for him, you just start looking at draft value. There's always going to be a higher value in catchers because I think if he went to his next position, it would probably be corner outfield. And when you start writing up that scout card, physical, athletic, the carrying tools, the bat, but is going to have to play corner outfield. Like, there's a lot more competition for those spots. There's a lot of guys that kind of start filling that role. Um, you look at highest priority items, everyone is looking for guys that they can project out as being starting pitchers. They're looking at shortstops. They're looking at catchers. They're looking at center fielders. Knowing that a high percentage of guys at each one of those positions, ultimately at the pro level, probably at some point are going to have to move off those premium positions because their tool set, their athleticism, whatever it may be, is going to necessitate or force them to the outlying stuff. And so I think for him, if he can solidify himself behind the plate, if there's some cross checkers and some organizations that can really feel good about him continuing to progress at that position and to be a legitimate catcher in their farm system, I think that's going to probably have a chance to boost him up some boards. But ultimately, the ability to switch hit for power, and the athleticism. Like, if he's not a catcher, for me, he's a proto right fielder with the ability to switch hit. The player comp I actually threw on him is he actually kind of reminds me of Mark Teixeira.
Hmm.
That type of guy can become an everyday big leaguer down the road. For me, I think that's a good comp. There might be some other examples, but yeah, it'll be interesting.
Well, we spent about 3 minutes on him, and by the time we hit publish, he'll probably be committed somewhere already. But it's good to talk about Taitn Gray a little bit. Other guys, other names on your 2025 list, uncommitted at the moment, and again, probably some of them getting committed by the time we hit publish on this, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of people should be. He made a jump into our top 10 in the rankings. Wrigley Matthys. I think Wrigley Matthys is he's probably a better baseball player than he is a showcase guy. Um, he plays at a really high level, and I say that he's got a playable arm. I think it's like 83, 84, somewhere in that range. It's not a bazooka, but at the same time, like something we used to live and die with coaching in college, we used to bring up like the one liner, whoever won a national championship on an outfield assist. Like people want to put all this emphasis and on how hard an outfielder throws when the reality is can they track down fly balls? Can they field them off the ground? Can they get rid of it? Are they accurate? Are they going to hit their cut guys and stop runners from moving up extra bases? And you can accomplish that at 83 miles an hour. You can accomplish that at 95 miles an hour. Um, so I don't think that's like a big negative on him. He's a really good athlete. He's been really good in every sport that he participates in. And, at the Iowa State games, I mean, the dude ripped a 6.40. Like, you can really pick him up and put him down. He's gritty. He's a tough kid. Best player on the field most days when he walks into the yard. And I know there's got to be a lot of people chasing him right now.
Who else you got?
Um, well, I've always been a fan of Will Nuss from Johnston. I
Future
just,
game participant.
yep, future games. Really good athlete. He's probably that guy that if there is red flags or some rawness in him, it's because he's so good at multiple sports. His time gets divided. I think if baseball becomes his direction, I think he's a guy that once he puts 100% of his time into baseball, just really has a chance to take off down the road. And I just think it carries a lot of weight. Like Johnston High School is just such a beast with just the sheer volume and number of guys that go out for baseball and at the level that they play. And just, I'm always really interested in those young guys that can kind of overcome all that and work their way into starting spots early in their career. Like it just shows me that they have a lot of ability and can really work themselves through some things. So I really like Will Nuss, Jaxton Schroeder from
Hmm.
Iowa City. Like I've always liked him as a defender. I've always liked the projectability in the bat. I think he's even added more value to the table because now he's starting to get on the mound more. I mean, I went to it would have been Iowa City High's last regular season game of the year this summer. I think that night he was like up to 88, 89 from the left side with a legitimate breaking ball to back it up. And he's got to be 6'5", 6'6", and so maybe that becomes his get out of jail free card. Like maybe the bat has always been a little spotty here and there. Um, so ultimately, either the bat figures itself out, he becomes more consistent, and he's a legitimate corner guy, first baseman, middle of the order hitter. Or if it doesn't go in that direction, I think he's probably 20 pounds and some physical maturity away from, like, the dude's going to be low 90s from the left side with a above average breaking ball. And the last time I knew, that played at a pretty high level.
We throw the word projectability around a lot. You can go check our Twitter feed. We've probably used that a lot during our tournaments and whatnot. But I think Schroeder is definitely a projectable athlete. If you were saying what's projectability, that is kind of the project. They're all projectable because they're all in high school. They're all going to grow. They're all going to develop. But I'd put my money on projectability out of him. Let's pretend I'm a college coach asking you for your arms. What do you got to help me out in the rotation?
I think there's still some really good arms on the board. Um, I think they all differ significantly. The you go down, like some guys have started to leak off the board here recently. Obviously, Schrader kind of goes into that spot a little bit. Kai Smith is our top ranked, pretty much primary arm on the board right now. Um, Another guy, extremely projectable, 6'5", 6'6", starting to add some strength, still pretty gangly. We'll run it up into the low 90s. Above average pitchability, can pitch guys backwards, spins it really well. He's an easy guy to dream on. Um, there's a guy, I know he had a kind of an up and down summer, but just arm talent wise, Will Piro from Dubuque Wahlert. Like, I really like him on video, and when I saw him at the All State event last March, I think he has some things to still figure out and work out, but just pure arm talent. I think he's a super interesting guy. Um, Fletcher Yates, a guy I haven't seen a ton, but ultimately big bodied kid. Again, I keep going down this trend. Maybe I need to gravitate over and become like a basketball recruiter, evaluator, but another, big body, 6'4", 6'5", will show you above average velocity, mid to upper 80s. He's interesting. And I mean, just keep going down the list. You're going to have some lower velo guys that are plus pitchability. You're going to have some more arm strength guys that still need to work some stuff out. There's multi-sport guys that once they put the time in, you feel really good about them making a big jump down the road. I just always smirked or kind of laughed. The reality is, and a lot of these guys, just the dynamics in Iowa, a lot of these guys will probably end up at one of the junior colleges, either outside or inside the state. But we would have coaches would come in and, more of the finished product after a year or two. We would have an arm. He was 6'5", he was 240. He's throwing 92 to 94, like just a complete man child. And they'd be like, oh my God, how did you get this guy? And the reality is the guy that they were looking at that time wasn't the guy that we got. When we got him, he was 6'3", and he was 180 pounds at best. But he had some pitchability and he had some athleticism, and then you tack on 20, 30, 40 pounds over 2 years and you get him focused on becoming a better baseball player and not have all the other distractions of everything else. And I think there's just so many guys up and down this list that if you pull the trigger on the right guys, there's at least a dozen guys in 2 years that are going to make a lot of coaches look like geniuses.
And that's a good message for the players too. I mean, there's got to be some patience involved. You might not be getting the calls that you want, but again, if you go to the right place, right program, get your work in, you could be like that too and head on to the next level. We talked about that in one of our previous episodes. So
And we always say huge difference between 20-year-old man and 17, 18-year-old kid.
Yeah. Your list, obviously, we're down to the last maybe a couple drops right at this point. But do you have any risers, newcomers that have showed up for this time around?
Um, Yeah, a big riser for me was Jack Steeler from Sioux City East. He went all the way. I think we had him at like 28, 30, and like he was right as I was kind of whittling down the list and making those tough decisions in that top 15 to 20. He was able to wedge himself up at number 12. Um, just had a monster year for Sioux City East. Swung the bat really well. Did it against above average pitching. Uh, just really, you know, he's the type of guy that just makes it easier on me because you see some tools or you see some projectability. But when they go out and they play at a really high level and dominate competition around them, like it just solidifies like a lot of the guesswork. And the summer he put together and everything that he did, like it made it easy that he was the type of guy that really needed to move up. Um, we had a few other guys. Caden Fan from Clear Creek Amana, kind of had been banged up with injuries. Coming through his sophomore year, really there's the question mark: was he going to be a position player? Was the emphasis going to be more of him on the mound? He really took a big jump offensively and had a great season for them. Um, left-handed hitter, really physical, good athlete, squares up a lot of baseballs, plays at a high level. Like again, he really started to check a lot of boxes coming back and being able to get through the summer. A guy that I really liked, and he's not, even though he has really good data and he's going to put up good numbers, I really wouldn't consider him like a showcase guy. But Colton Durling from Cedar Rapids Kennedy, like he's such a good baseball player. Like obviously Kennedy was loaded this year, um, just beasts, beasts out there. Like they had to have been one of the most intimidating teams to walk off a bus, and just physicality and big guys and athletic guys. And to me, I thought he was kind of the glue of that team in the middle. Um, Plays really good defense, busts his ass all over the place, just really plays at a high level. Um, so I was a huge fan of him. I really like Jordan Woodhouse. He went from not even being ranked, jumping all the way up to 33rd. He was at the Iowa State games. Lean, athletic kid, whippy arm, ran it up into the mid 80s. Spin a breaking ball a little bit. I think he's a guy that has a lot of projection. Um, yeah, so those are some of the big movers for me.
All right, do me a favor. Scroll all the way to the bottom of your list.
Oh, jeepers.
And again, I know you've already put all the thought into where these guys are, but get a name that you think here in 2 years has the opportunity to pop that isn't towards the top of your list.
You always paint me in a corner on these.
I know. I'm just trying to keep you on your toes.
Well, thank God I have you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I tend to get off my toes.
You'll get complacent and rest on your laurels, that kind of stuff.
Laurels.
A lot of baseball podcasts say laurels a lot.
I'm going to go with a position player and a pitcher.
All right.
Okay. One guy I've always been impressed with over the last couple years, a guy that I really think has a chance to develop. I really like Chase McEwen from Denver, Iowa. Big athlete, physical behind the plate. I think he's got the right body type, the right higher level of athleticism. I think he could really make a jump at that position. Strong, swings a solid bat. I totally might be talking out of my butt on this, but I just think he's really interesting. Um, and then an arm I really like, who's really a good performer in spring league last year, is Southeast Polk's Mason Hedrick. Um, really good wrestler, really competitive, maybe a touch undersized, but super fast arm, up to 87, 88. Um, you know, I ding him a little bit because, 5'9", 5'10", right-handed pitcher, like kind of starts getting swallowed up from a physical perspective, but he's so twitchy and the arm moves so well that I could, if he stays healthy, like I could see him being a guy 2 years down the road that all of a sudden is throwing really, really hard and just really making a name for himself in some ways.
See, I like that. I like the guys that make your list look wrong. That's good. Like I hope they do. I hope they do. I hope they make it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and I don't mean it in a negative way. Like,
Hmm.
obviously, doing rankings sometimes can be tenuous. Not everyone's going to be in agreement. Like, it's an arduous task. Like you're comparing a lot of apples to oranges. You're trying to look at guys from different lenses, maybe from an athletic lens or playability lens or a tools lens, or you're looking at them in a lot of different ways and trying to stack them up against each other. And and I mean it with all respect. Like, if a guy is farther down the rankings and he's disenfranchised, if he goes out and he does really well for himself, that is so awesome. Like, that is awesome. It helps me as a scout. It makes me revisit how I viewed him or how I evaluated him. Um, is there something I missed? Uh, did he answer any of the question marks I had? Like, absolutely. And I think there'll be guys in this list. Like, there's guys that I hold in higher value right now that maybe won't get to where I think they're going to get to. And there's going to guys that are going to be a little lower on the list that are absolutely going to blow up and do really well for themselves. And that's awesome as well.
You know what our showcases don't measure?
Uh,
Heart.
Heart,
Yeah. Yeah. That's up to the players. That's up to them. You're right.
you're so cheesy. So cheesy.
Well, any final thoughts on the 2025 class? I mean, we're heading into their senior year, started their senior year. What, from a, if you're not already committed, what should they be doing right now?
Just take advantage of still trying to get out in front of people. Take advantage of developing their game. Take advantage of if they do have some deficiencies. Uh, Keep trying to improve in those areas. I think recruiting is super fluid. I know we kind of put this microscope on thinking everyone needs to commit in September of their senior year of high school. Um, and I think a lot of things can change. I do think that's the advantage of having spring baseball, like in Nebraska or Minnesota, is that you see a lot of guys in those two states. I mean, you could have saw them 10 times over in the fall and saw exactly where they were at. And all of a sudden, they come out of a long winter. It's their senior year. Their body's really starting to develop. Some of them are finally actually finishing puberty. And all of a sudden, they're 10, 15 pounds bigger. A lot of them, their velo has taken some sort of jump, or their just overall ability on the field has taken a jump. And if those guys are still available, like, there's a little bit of a feeding frenzy to accrue their services. And that makes it harder in Iowa. Now, you can still accomplish it, but when guys they come out and they pop in May or June, like, that window is really shrunk down if they're still uncommitted. to get a lot of looks and get a lot of opportunities. But I see too many guys that if they don't have the option or the opportunity they want, say after October, it seems like a lot of kids in Iowa then will just shut it down. They'll resign themselves so that they're not going to play college baseball. And I think that's really short-sighted because I do think if they stay the course and continue to get after it, I I definitely think there's a lot of kids that if they were still motivated in the spring going into the summer, still could create a lot of options for themselves.
That's good. So all you seniors, keep that in mind. Final question for you, Rob.
Okay.
What's your go-to gas station buy?
My go-to gas station buy. Well, I would say as my waistband continues to expand, for whatever reason, it wouldn't be gas station specific, but I've like been on this huge Twix kick here lately. Like, yeah, whenever I'm leaving town or get home late at night, want a snack before I go to bed, like it doesn't matter. I might go with the right, I might go with the left, but yeah, big fan of Twix right now for whatever
Do they
reason.
both get crushed, or you just one at a time?
Well, no, I'm not like two fisting Twixes into my face.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, no, I go one at a time, but on the package they say left and the other one, right. Get it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, big fan of Twix. Huge.
it's psycho to eat them at the same time. I think. Right. Yeah. Don't do it that way.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm not going to two fist Twixes into my mouth. What do you think? I'm a savage?
But you know what? Who are we to judge? I'll let any listener out there eat their Twix any way they want to eat their Twix. As long as you keep listening and subscribe to our podcast, I'm good with it. I've been Parker Hageman. That's been Rob Allison. We'll talk 2026 is the next time.
Thanks.